So the biggest talk among Bulls fans right now and how the team can go about improving the roster is, well, there are a few ways, but the biggest one right now is what are the Blazers either going to do with their number 3 pick in the draft or with trading Damian Lillard. There is also the possibility, which we've talked about as it relates to the Blazers potentially coming to an agreement with the Bulls by giving us the 23rd pick, which is owed to them from the New York Knicks in a prior trade, and then the Bulls giving back the lottery protected pick they owe us from the 3-team deal with Lavine, which the Blazers could then use to package in a deal to try and bring in star talent to keep Damian Lillard happy. But based on these options, rather than see more Bulls fans talk about the potential of somehow trading up into the draft to get the number 3 pick, you've seen the Lillard Photoshop jerseys and Bulls uniforms saying, we need to make an all-in push to get the superstar in Chicago. Big market, big name, but I'm here to say, and yes, I know it's yet another negative outlook, but I'm here to say that the chances of the Bulls actually getting Lillard are so incredibly small, and how going after the number 3 pick is actually much more plausible at this point, and it's what we'll be talking about in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. First off, apologies for the sound quality. I'm actually in Vegas taking a little vacation for a long weekend, so this will probably be my last video for the next few days unless any major breaking news happens. But I wanted to discuss this topic because a lot of people have been messaging me on Twitter or commenting on some of my videos asking for my thoughts on trading for Damian Lillard, and I think what a lot of Bulls fans fail to realize is that while adding a player like Dame, a superstar, I believe he's a top 10 player in the league, he certainly would elevate the Bulls from where they are now. But practically speaking, how are you going to make a trade like that work? I'm all ears if anyone has suggestions that maybe I'm not seeing, but the fact of the matter is Damian Lillard is on one of the most expensive contracts in the NBA, set to make over $45 million next season. He's still going to be under contract through 2027, at which point he'll be making $63.2 million in that final year when he's 36 years old. And you have to remember, which I know most people know this, you have to match salaries or close to it anyway when making a trade in the NBA. If we're talking about the Bulls making a trade for Dame, really the only player that is going to make a deal like that work is moving on from Zach Lavine. And if you're trading for Damian Lillard, you're doing it with the intention of keeping the core talent you have on the Bulls to put around Lillard. Now, sure, there could be a scenario where you could move DeMar DeRozan on the final year of his contract. Maybe you include Lonzo Ball. Their 2 salaries would make the money work, and the Blazers could use the trade as salary dump by applying for the disabled player exception on Lonzo to get the money off the books, and then let DeMar's contract expire, which positions them well for significant cap space by getting Lillard's contract off the books. But the thing you have to remember, if the Blazers do in fact trade Damian Lillard, they're going to be going into a full rebuild. They're going to want as many draft picks and young players to build for their future as possible. They're not going to be interested in guys like DeMar or Vucevic, probably even Zach Lavine. They would want to be starting fresh, using that 3rd pick to get another young talented player and continuing to develop guys like Simons and Sharp. And because they know they can get a significant haul for Lillard, they're going to trade him to the highest bidder, which as of right now, the Bulls simply would not be able to be competitive in an offer to the Blazers compared to other teams in the league that have more trade assets. The Bulls don't have any draft picks. Not that they can trade anyway. The soonest 1st-round draft pick they can trade is in 2027, and the soonest 2nd-round pick they can trade, I believe, is in 2026. And then as far as the Bulls' young players, well, yes, Patrick Williams, Coby White, Dosunmu, you can even throw in Dalen Terry in there. Yes, they have shown some flashes, upside potential, but it's nothing that's going to wow the Blazers in terms of some of the other younger talent around the league they could obtain, in addition to draft picks for Damian Lillard. As I've said before, the market for superstar talent is insane right now. We can thank the Atlanta Hawks and the Minnesota Timberwolves for setting that bar so high by trading multiple unprotected 1st-round picks for fringe-level star players. Kevin Durant, even when the Nets didn't have much leverage, and despite KD being an aging and injury-prone player, they still got 4 first-round picks for him and 2 young players. That's going to be the rate for a superstar caliber player. And the Bulls just don't have that kind of package they could conceivably put together that would be enticing enough for the Blazers to bite on. Not only that, let's say the Bulls could somehow pull off a trade. Let's say they send them their 1st-round picks in 2027 and 2029, which would be the last of the remaining picks the Bulls would be able to trade. And let's say you send them all the young core you possibly could, and DeMar DeRozan to make the money work, and the Blazers could just use that to free up cap space for next season when his contract expires. Let's say you get a deal done like that. Your picks are now gone, your young players are gone, and while you've got a superstar now in Damian Lillard, you have to remember he's 33. Has had issues with injuries since entering his 30s, and is on a very heavy contract that is going to limit you from a cap perspective. You do all of that, and you have little to nothing to work with for the future. Let's say you're okay, you're able to keep Zach Lavine, who is 28, maybe they can re-sign Vucevic, also going to be 33 like Dame. Is a trio of Lavine, Damian Lillard, and Vucevic making a deep playoff run while you fill out the roster with role players on min deals with a mid-level exception? Sure, they would be a better team than what we saw last season. They would make the playoffs in the East, but I think that would be a second-round team at best. It certainly would not be a title contending team. And if it's not a championship level team, why are you even giving up your entire future for that? Now, what I will say as an alternative, because some of you in the comments have been saying, I make these videos, but I don't provide an alternative for what the Bulls could do. The Bulls should absolutely be looking to do whatever they can to try and trade for that number 3 pick for the Blazers. Because at the end of the day, I do think the Blazers front office is going to do what they can to keep Dame and try to get him as many win now pieces to help them compete for a title now and maximizing his prime window, which is closing. That means you're going to be shopping that number 3 pick, which has already been reported to be the case. And luckily for the Bulls, they actually have some win now-ish pieces to help compete for a title. I mean, I don't know if those are necessarily the right pieces, but maybe the Blazers would think so. I personally don't think DeMar would be a good fit next to Damian Lillard. Not saying it would be terrible, but both are ball-dominant players, heavy isolation scorers that aren't the best on defense. But DeMar would be a player that would fit the mold of trying to win now with guys who are already there, have the experience, and are established stars in the NBA. Maybe you also include a sign and trade for Vucevic, which would upgrade their center position. Would probably mean the Bulls would have to take on Nurkic's bad contract, which isn't ideal, but hey, you're also getting the number 3 pick in a stacked draft class and a potential franchise player between either Scoot Henderson, who is the guy I really want, or Brandon Miller. Or there's also Zach Lavine, who is probably a better fit next to Dame, although still not ideal. But Zach can play off the ball, is great on the catch and shoot. He can shoot it from outside, like Damian Lillard. I mean, really, you would be talking about 2 of the most lethal outside shooters in the league who shoot it on high volume. Obviously, you'd have to make the money work, which would probably again mean taking on some bad contracts. And while I'm not opposed to this trade, you are still trading Zach Lavine for the number 3 pick, which is enticing, but I actually think you could get more for Zach if you are in fact looking to trade him. Let's not forget the rumor at the deadline of the Knicks looking to trade 3 first-round picks for Zach, along with Obi Toppin, Quentin Grimes, and I believe it was Derrick Rose and Evan Fournier as salary filler. I would personally prefer that than just trading Zach for the number 3 pick in this year's draft. If the Blazers also included Shaedon Sharpe, yeah, then I would be down. I think Sharpe has a lot of potential, was the number 7 pick in last year's draft, only 19. That and the number 3 pick would be worth it to me, but it likely wouldn't be enough for the Blazers, knowing they could get more in a package deal for the 3rd pick in Sharpe. But either way, AK has to be making calls to see what can be done to obtain the 3rd pick. The Bulls have to get creative this offseason. They don't have much to work with in the form of trades, cap space, and of course draft picks, which as of right now, they don't have any picks in this year's draft. A draft that is slated to be the most stacked draft class in years. Trading for Damian Lillard though, yeah, I think that's out. It's just not practical for all the reasons I mentioned. But let me know in the comments what you guys think, what you would like to see the Bulls do, whether it's pursuing a trade for Dame or going after the 3rd pick in the draft instead. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.